Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really jumping into endurance, and we've shaped this discussion specifically for you. We've pulled together a ton of info on how your brain and body actually sustain effort. Our goal, to give you the key takeaways, the really surprising stuff.
Yeah, think of it as a shortcut, right? We're digging through the science, neurobiology, exercise fighters, training protocols so you get the essentials without getting lost in the weeds.
Exactly. We want to unpack how this all works, from energy systems to, actual training and recovery you can use.
And it's not just for elite athletes, is it?
Not at all. Whether you just want more stamina for daily life or maybe better mental focus for work, or you're just curious how it all connects, brain and body.
This is for you. You're going to have some aha moments, I think. Stuff that might really shift how you view your own limits.
Definitely. And let's start by saying endurance isn't just like going for a long run.
Right. That's the old view. We're going to break down four distinct types of endurance today.
Each hitting your body and brain differently.
Precisely. And we'll talk about training methods you might not have even considered before.
Okay, awesome. Where do we start?
Yeah.
The foundation.
Let's start with energy, the absolute bedrock.
Yeah.
ATP.
Adenosine triphosphate.
Yeah.
Sounds fancy, but it's basically the fuel for everything, right? Mental, physical effort.
It's the universal energy currency. Every single thing your cells do, muscle contractions, nerve signals, it all needs ATP.
And the little factories making this ATP are the mitochondria.
Yep, those are your cellular powerhouses, constantly churning out ATP.
And they're not picky eaters, I gather.
Not really. Your body's super adaptable. It can turn carbs, glucose fats, even things like creatine or ketones into ATP. Depends on the situation, what fuel's available.
Okay, so those are the fuels, but oxygen. Oxygen's different. It's not fuel itself.
Correct. Oxygen is essential, but it's not the fuel source. Think of it like the air needed for a fire. The fuels are the wood, but oxygen lets the fire burn efficiently. Without enough oxygen, you can't effectively convert those fuels into ATP for long.
It's the facilitator.
Exactly. The unsung hero, you could say.
So, thinking about this, maybe the better question isn't what lets us endure, but what actually stops us? What are the limits?
Oh, that's a great way to frame it. And it's often not just running out of gas, so to speak. The brain is a huge factor. Ever heard of the central governor concept?
Vaguely. It's like the brain puts the brakes on.
Sort of, yeah. It's this idea that your brain actively regulates your effort to protect you, to prevent damage. It senses fatigue signals and might decide, okay, that's enough, even if your muscles technically could do a bit more. It's about perceived limits.
Wow. So it's not just my legs screaming. My brain is actually making a call.
In many cases, yes. And things like willpower, mental toughness, they're tied into this too. It involves neurons, how they utilize fuel. It's complex.
Which systems are the main players in setting these limits then?
Well, we can break it down into roughly 5 key interconnected systems. Your nerves, obviously, controlling everything. The muscles doing the work. Your blood carrying fuel and oxygen, the heart pumping that blood, and the lungs bringing in the oxygen. They all influence endurance.
And when we talk muscles and performance, we really have to mention Dr. Andy Galpin's work here. He's huge in this space.
Oh, absolutely. Dr. Galpin is fantastic. He's a leading expert in muscle physiology, performance, and he's brilliant at making the science practical. Whether you're a pro athlete or just trying to get fitter, a lot of these practical insights draw heavily on his work.
He bridges that gap between the lab and, the gym or the track.
He really does. And for anyone wanting to dive really deep into the science, like the signaling pathways and genetic stuff in muscles, there's a great review article by Ellefson and Barr called Adaptations to Endurance and Strength Training. It's dense, but comprehensive.
Good resource.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the brain putting the brakes on. You mentioned an experiment.
Yes, a really cool study. It pinpointed neurons in the brainstem in a spot called the locus coeruleus. These neurons release epinephrine adrenaline, which gets you fired up.
Standard stress response, yeah.
I mean,
mobilizing energy.
right. But the interesting part involved other brain cells, glial cells. These aren't neurons, but they support them.
Okay. What do the glial cells do here?
They seem to act like monitors for that epinephrine. When levels get high, the glia basically signal back to the locus coeruleus, like, okay, rein it in. They seem to trigger the enough is enough signal, dialing back the drive to continue.
So the glia are almost like the the kill switch or the governor itself.
That's a compelling way to think about it. It
Uh,
suggests the decision to stop, that feeling of hitting a wall, is often fundamentally neural. It originates in the brain's assessment of the situation.
Which totally blurs that line we always draw between mental toughness and physical limits.
Exactly. That dichotomy is often misleading. It's all biology. Your ability to persist, to push through discomfort, it's rooted in these neural processes, how efficiently your neurons fire, how they manage fuel, how these glial cells respond. It's integrated.
Mind blown. Okay, so what do these neurons need to keep firing to let us push on?
They primarily run on glucose, so carbohydrates are key. They also need electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium for electrical signaling.
The stuff you lose in sweat.
Precisely.
Oh,
And ATP, of course, to power the pumps that maintain the electrical gradients. Oh, and pH balance, the acidity level in the brain environment is also critical for optimal function.
Got it. Now, let's shift focus down to the muscles themselves. What's their immediate go-to fuel?
For really short, powerful bursts, they use phosphocreatine. But for anything more sustained, it's mainly glycogen-stored carbs right there in the muscle.
And just like the brain, muscles are sensitive to stuff like pH and temperature.
Very much so. Acidity buildup can interfere with contraction, and temperature affects enzyme activity, like pyruvate kinase, which is crucial for energy production. We touched on that in a previous deep dive about boosting performance.
Right. And then delivering all this fuel and oxygen, that's the job of the blood, heart, and lungs working together.
The whole delivery system. Blood carries the glucose, the fatty acids, and the all-important oxygen. The heart is the pump moving it all around, and the lungs are the intake, bringing that oxygen in. It's a coordinated effort.
Okay, foundation laid, energy, limits, key players. Let's get practical. The 4 types of endurance. First one, muscular endurance. Define that for us.
Muscular endurance is basically a muscle's ability, or a muscle group's ability, to just keep doing work over time, resisting fatigue locally.
So the fatigue is in the muscle, not necessarily your whole cardiovascular system.
Exactly. Think about doing lots of push-ups, or holding a plank for a long time, or maybe carrying a moderately heavy object for a distance. Your arms or core might burn out long before you're out of breath.
Makes sense. So how do you train that specifically?
Typically, you're looking at higher repetitions, maybe in the 12 to 100 rep range, for about 3 to 5 sets. And the rest periods are shorter, like 30 seconds up to maybe 3 minutes. The goal is to approach muscular failure on each set where you struggle to get another good rep.
You mentioned something specific about the type of muscle contraction for this. Concentric versus eccentric.
Ah, yes, good point. For muscular endurance training, the focus is usually on the concentric part, the muscle shortening, like the up phase of a pull-up. You generally want to avoid emphasizing or deliberately slowing down the eccentric phase, the muscle lengthening, like the down phase.
Why avoid the eccentric focus?
Heavy eccentric work tends to cause more muscle damage and soreness, which isn't really the goal here. We want the muscle to resist fatigue during repeated contractions. So things like jumping with that heavy landing impact aren't ideal for building muscular endurance, though they train other things.
Okay, and the benefits. Why train this?
It helps in any activity with repeated muscle actions, golf swing, tennis, even just maintaining posture all day. Good postural endurance from things like planks or wall sits for your core and back can really help prevent aches and pains, like that text neck issue. It can also support longer duration stuff.
And what's happening physiologically? What are we building?
Primarily, you're boosting the ability of the mitochondria within those specific muscles to use oxygen for local energy production, mitochondrial respiration. You also improve the neural control, making the muscle more efficient at contracting repeatedly. It's distinct from building pure maximal strength or power.
Got it. Okay, type 2. Long duration endurance. This is the classic stuff, right?
This is what most people think of, yeah.
Yeah.
Sustained effort, generally 12 minutes or longer. Running, cycling, swimming, hiking for hours. That zone.
Training approach here, continuous effort.
Yep. Typically one continuous bout. The intensity is submaximal below your VO2 max. You're not trying to hit failure like in muscular endurance. The focus is more on efficiency of movement, maintaining a steady pace.
Why do we eventually fatigue in these long efforts? Is it just running out of glycogen?
Glycogen depletion is definitely a major factor, especially initially. But it's also about those central pattern generators in the brain getting less efficient. And honestly, the mental effort involved. Willpower itself consumes energy, believe it or not.
And the big benefits of this long duration training.
2 huge ones. You increase mitochondrial density, basically packing more powerhouses into your muscle cells, making them way more efficient, and you build more capillary beds.
Capillaries. The tiny blood vessels.
Exactly. Think of it like upgrading the irrigation system in your muscles. A denser network of capillaries means better oxygen delivery. It's why your second 5K run feels easier than your first, even if you rest in between. Your plumbing has improved.
Cool analogy. Okay, moving to the intense stuff. High-intensity anaerobic endurance. HIIT, but the anaerobic kind. What's the deal here?
Right. This is about repeated, short bursts of very high intensity, pushing you well above your sustainable oxygen use rate, VO2 max, with deliberately incomplete recovery.
So like sprints with short rest.
Exactly. You might do 3 to 12 sets. The work-to-rest ratio is key and can vary a lot, maybe 3 to 1, like 30 seconds on, 10 off, or even 1 to 5, like 20 seconds all out, then 100 seconds recovery.
How do you choose the ratio? And how do you progress?
The ratio often depends on the exercise. If technique is crucial, like with kettlebell swings or heavy squats, you probably need longer rest, closer to that 1 to 5, to maintain form and avoid injury. For simpler stuff like cycling sprints, shorter rest might work. Progression is usually adding more sets over time. Start with maybe 3 sets twice a week and build up.
And the benefits of this anaerobic pounding.
It really cranks up mitochondrial respiration, the ability to use oxygen effectively even during intense work. It also builds some capillaries, maybe not as much as long duration. But a huge benefit is improving the neural drive to your muscles for repeated high-force efforts.
Who needs this? Team sports.
Definitely. Think soccer, basketball, hockey sports with lots of sprinting, changing direction, bursts of power. It trains your muscles to produce high force again and again, which is different from just a 1-rep max strength.
Okay, final type. High-intensity aerobic conditioning. Also HIIT, but different.
Slightly different flavor of HII, yes. Still intense intervals with rest, but the work periods are often longer, and the intensity might be closer to your VO2 max or just slightly below it rather than way above it like anaerobic HIIT. The goal is to spend significant time with your heart rate and oxygen use very high.
Give me an example protocol.
A classic, very effective one is a 1-to-1 work-to-rest ratio. Maybe run hard for 8 minutes, then rest for 8 minutes, and repeat that 3 to 5 times. Or run a fast mile, rest for the time it took you to run it, repeat. The total work time in each interval is usually longer, say 8-12 minutes.
How often? And any surprising outcomes?
Because it's tough, usually 2-3 times a week max. And recovery is key. Give yourself 4-6 hours minimum, maybe even 24 hours, between this and other hard workouts like strength training. The surprise, some people find they can actually run long races, like half or even full marathons, pretty well just by doing this type of training, without tons of traditional long runs.
Really? How does that work?
Because it hits so many systems effectively, it improves nerve-muscle communication, ATP and mitochondrial function, blood's oxygen delivery to muscles and brain, heart function, lung capacity. It's a very comprehensive stimulus.
Wow. Okay, so those are the 4 pillars. Now let's talk tools to supercharge endurance across the board. Breathing seems fundamental.
Absolutely. We breathe to get oxygen in, CO2 out, right? Maintaining that O2-CO2 balance is vital. And how we breathe matters.
The classic nose versus mouth breathing debate. What's the verdict for exercise?
General rule. Nasal breathing is great, especially at lower intensities. It filters, warms, humidifies air. But as you ramp up the effort, you'll likely need to switch to mouth breathing or a combination to simply get enough air volume in quickly. Think of it like gears. Nose breathing for cruising, mouth breathing when you need to accelerate hard.
Should we warm up our breathing muscles consciously?
You know, it's often overlooked, but yes. Your intercostals between your ribs and your diaphragm are muscles. Doing some deliberate deep breaths before exercise, focusing on expanding the chest and belly, can prepare them. It might help you take deeper, less frantic breaths during the workout. It can even, weirdly, help you feel more alert if you're sluggish.
What about that awful side stitch? What causes it and how do we fix it?
The worst. It's likely referred pain from the phrenic nerve, which controls the diaphragm. Sometimes jarring movements or shallow breathing irritate it. The best fix I know. The double inhale, exhale. Take a big breath in, then sip a little more air on top. Then exhale fully and slowly. Repeat a few times. Usually knocks it out.
Handy tip. And breathing rhythm during exercise. Like exhale on the hard part.
Generally, yeah. Exhale during the maximal effort or concentric phase. Lifting, pushing, pulling up. Inhale during the less strenuous or eccentric phase, lowering, recovery. Helps brace your core and sync breath with movement.
Okay, another tool. Finding an extra gear by shifting fuel sources.
Yeah, this is interesting. Sometimes during a long, steady effort, when you feel fatigue setting in, Briefly picking up the pace, not an all-out sprint, but a noticeable increase can kind of jolt your system into using a slightly different fuel mix, potentially tapping into reserves.
And elite athletes get really fancy with this.
Oh, yeah. They might use carb loading strategies combined with things like ketone esters to have multiple fuel tanks available for ultra-long events. It's complex physiology.
Let's talk hydration. You said it's more than just avoiding thirst.
Way more. Water and electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium are critical for nerves firing, muscles contracting, even brain function. You lose a lot through sweat.
How much fluid loss are we talking?
It varies hugely, but could be anywhere from 1 to even 5 pounds of water weight per hour of exercise, depending on heat, humidity, intensity.
And even slight dehydration hits performance hard.
Absolutely. Losing just 1–4% of your body weight in water can slash your work capacity, physical and mental, by 20–30%. That's significant.
So how much should we drink? Is there a rule of thumb?
Thirst is too late. Dr. Galpin offers a useful starting point, the Galpin equation. Take your body weight in pounds, divide by 30. That number is roughly the ounces of fluid you should aim for every 15 minutes of exercise.
Body weight in pounds, 30 ounces per 15 minutes. Okay, that's a concrete starting point.
Exactly. Adjust based on your sweat rate and conditions, but it gives you a ballpark.
Any issues drinking during really high intensity? Like, can your stomach handle it?
It can be tricky. Above maybe 70% VO2 max, stomach emptying can slow down. But like many things, you can train your gut. Start with small sips during intense sessions and gradually increase the volume as your body adapts.
Right, trainability again. Okay, let's shift to recovery. What works best after endurance work?
This is where things like cold exposure, ice baths, cold showers might actually be beneficial after endurance training. It seems to potentially support mitochondrial adaptations. This contrasts a bit with strength training, where we sometimes caution against blunting inflammation immediately after.
Interesting difference. What about simple rest?
Crucial. Most people need 1–2 full rest days a week. And you can gauge recovery with something like the CO2 tolerance test.
Remind me how that works.
4 normal breaths in and out, then 1 big inhale, and then see how long you can make a controlled, slow exhale last. Aiming for 60 seconds or more usually indicates good recovery, good parasympathetic tone.
And actively calming down post-workout.
Highly recommended. Spending even 5–20 minutes doing slow nasal breathing with long exhales or just lying down quietly helps shift your nervous system back towards rest and digest mode faster, speeding up recovery.
Okay, final piece, putting it all together. Programming. Can you mix endurance and strength?
Definitely. Concurrent training works. The key is spacing. Try to allow at least 4–6 hours, ideally up to 24 hours, between a hard endurance session and a hard strength session, or vice versa.
And can you train all 4 types of endurance?
Absolutely. You don't have to choose just one. A balanced program can incorporate elements of muscular, long duration, anaerobic, and aerobic endurance, tailored to whatever your goals are. You might emphasize one more than others depending on your needs or sport.
This has been super comprehensive. Let's try and crystallize the main takeaways.
Okay. First, endurance isn't one thing. It's muscular, long duration, anaerobic, aerobic. Train them differently. Second, it's a whole system thing. Nerves, muscles, blood, heart, lungs all matter.
And simple tools can make a big difference.
Yeah, things like breathing techniques, nasal breathing when possible, the double inhale for stitches, exhaling on effort, and strategic hydration using that Galpin equation as a starting point. Don't underestimate those.
And recovery is active, not passive.
Right. Rest days are vital. Maybe use that CO2 tolerance test and actively downregulate with slow breathing after workouts.
Okay, here's a final thought to leave everyone with. Think about how training these different physical endurance types might actually build your mental endurance too. That ability to push through discomfort, maintain focus.
The physiological adaptations we talked about, better oxygen delivery to the brain, more efficient energy use, improved neural function, they likely underpin mental resilience just as much as physical stamina. The mind-body connection is deep.
So the question for you is, what parts of your life, work, projects, relationships, could benefit most if you intentionally trained your ability to persist physically and mentally?
Yeah, it's a powerful idea. And remember, we've just skimmed the surface. Dig into that review article. Check out Dr. Galpin's work if you want to go deeper. The science is fascinating.
Definitely. And share your thoughts with us. What were your aha moments? What challenges are you facing with endurance? Let's keep this conversation going.